When you think of Jason Momoa, you think of strength. A man carved from mythology. Aquaman himself, ruler of the ocean. It's hard to imagine him afraid. Even harder to imagine him fragile. But beneath the muscles, beneath the swagger, is someone who once faced the ocean and nearly didn't come back. What happens when a man known for conquering the sea is broken by it? This isn't another celebrity surf story. This is the moment Jason Momoa, the real Jason, found himself screaming inside. Voiceless, powerless, fighting against nature, begging to breathe. And the strangest part, it didn't happen while filming Aquaman. It wasn't on a Hollywood set, controlled and choreographed. This was real, raw, terrifying, and it changed him forever. To understand the weight of that moment, you have to first understand the man. Before the muscles, before the fame, before Atlantis, Jason Momoa wasn't born Aquaman. He was born Joseph Jason Namakea Momoa in Honolulu. A wild-spirited Hawaiian kid raised by a single mom in Iowa after his parents split. But those Hawaiian roots, they never left him. The ocean ran in his blood. Every trip back to Oahu was like reuniting with a lost part of himself. The salt, the surf, the language of waves. It was home. He didn't grow up wealthy. No connections. No shortcuts. Just a dream, a massive frame and charisma that couldn't be ignored. Modeling came first, then acting. And then, almost overnight, fame. Game of Thrones, Aquaman, red carpets, magazine covers. The world saw a warrior. Men wanted to be him. Women wanted to be with him. But the fame, that wasn't what grounded him. It was the water. Surfing had always been Jason's lifeline, a place where he could disappear, where no one was watching, where ego didn't matter. It was where he went when grief struck, when roles fell through, when his marriage was crumbling in the ocean. Jason felt like himself until the day it nearly took him away. He speaks slower now than the man we're used to, measured, humbled. It wasn't dramatic at first, he says. It was just a surf day, like any other. I'd been out there maybe 15, 20 minutes. The swells were heavy, but nothing I haven't handled before. He pauses, staring beyond the camera. Something in his eyes shifts. Then, but my body, it just stopped. It was during a remote trip off the coast of Northern California, a secret location Jason refuses to name. Just him, a couple of close friends, and a Pacific swell that looked promising. It was supposed to be a soul surf. No cameras, no crew, no expectations. But that morning, the ocean had other plans. The fog came in first, thick, heavy. You couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Then the waves began to rise. 10 feet, 12, 15. Jason, ever the fearless waterman, paddled into the mouth of it. It wasn't arrogance, he says now. It was trust. Me and the ocean. We've always had a relationship. I didn't think she'd turn on me. But the sea isn't loyal. It doesn't care who you are. And that day, it didn't care that Jason Momoa was a world-famous actor, a father, a friend. The ocean only knew how to pull, how to crush, how to bury. Jason caught the first wave clean, a towering beast with a moaning lip. He carved down the face like poetry. His friends hooted from the distance, watching him disappear behind the roar. Then came the second. That wave wasn't a ride, he says. It was a wall falling on top of me. He tried to dive under, but the wave caught the tail of his board and whipped it like a rag doll. In a second, he was flying through water, tumbling, spinning, crushed beneath thousands of pounds of ocean. He didn't know which way was up. He opened his mouth to scream, but only salt poured in. That's when I panicked, he confesses. Not just fear, it was animal primitive. My body began screaming, even though I made no sound. Inside, I was clawing to live. Then, black. Somewhere between consciousness and panic, Jason felt numbness take over. Not peaceful, but paralyzing. It wasn't like in the movies where your life flashes in front of you, he says. It was emptiness, then guilt. He thought of his children, Lola and Nakoav. He thought of Lisa, and he thought, not like this. Please, not like this. But the ocean was still pressing, still pummeling him, holding him under like a hand against his chest. What saved him was something deeper than strength. I don't remember how I got up, he says. All I know is, I started talking to the water. It sounds insane, but to Jason, water is alive. I told her I wasn't ready. I begged her. Like a child, I said, let me see my kids again. Please, somehow, his body limp just seconds. Before, surged up, he kicked again, and finally broke the surface. Gasps erupted around him. His friends were already paddling furiously in his direction. Bro, you disappeared, one of them shouted, pale-faced. Another swam straight to him, grabbing his shoulder. Jason threw up water, cried, laughed, cried again. Kneeling on his board, he stared out at the sea, again felt smaller than he'd ever felt in his life, and yet more alive than ever. It's hard to explain how close you can come to disappearing. There was no ambulance, no news report, no social media post. Jason didn't tell the world. For days, he didn't even tell his family. He needed time. Time to understand what happened. Time to face what surfaced. When the ocean almost made him vanish, because what nearly drowned that day wasn't just Jason, it was a version of him. The invincible, the untouchable. What survived was the human. He spent the following weeks in stillness. No filming, no surfing. Just thinking, being, and journaling. To the ocean, thank you for reminding me who I am. But please, next time, go easier. As he says this, you can tell he's joking, but also, he's not. Something in him changed. That day, he started talking more with his kids, opening up to his friends. He stopped trying to be everything to everyone. For once, Jason Momoa, the myth, stepped aside. For the man, and yet, the world didn't slow down. Offers kept coming. Roles, endorsements, photo shoots. But Jason now approached everything with caution, with purpose. I'm not scared of dying, he says. I'm scared of not living deeply. He returned to the water weeks later, tentatively, a small swell, with a new board, but even more with a new heart. The ocean didn't embrace him the same way, not at first. There was distance, mourning, healing, but he returned. Because for Jason, not surfing would mean saying goodbye to a part of himself forever. He chose courage. He chose humility, and the waves eventually welcomed him back, but he never surfs without gratitude. Now, without a prayer whispered before paddling out, not for safety, but for peace. Because Jason knows now, even gods can drown. And sometimes it takes almost dying to remember how badly you want to live. Sometimes survival doesn't feel heroic. It just feels surreal. You don't cannonball back into life with cheers and fireworks. You find yourself standing on a beach, days later, trial by water behind you, wondering what that brush with death really meant for Jason Momoa. It meant everything. The moment he emerged from that wave, coughing, crying, alive, wasn't the ending. It was the spark of a metamorphosis, and it would slowly untie every knot hiding inside him. In the following days, Jason became quiet, withdrawn, but not afraid. A sacred kind of silence. His friends, many of them lifelong surfers, didn't push. They didn't say, "You're lucky to be alive." They didn't tell him to get back out there. They let him do what the ocean didn't. Breathe, but breath wasn't enough. Something had shifted in Jason's spirit. It wasn't just about survival. He needed reckoning. Over the years, fame had given Jason a suit of armor. The press saw him as this joyful beast, all brew energy, beers, bikes, barrel waves, and belly laughs. But what no one knew was that behind the roaring laugh was a man who hadn't allowed himself to stop, ever. Because slowing down meant feeling, and, for Jason, feeling required facing so much more than nearly drowning. It meant the pain of recent heartbreak, the slow, respectful parting from his once great love, Lisa Bonet, the mother of his children, his anchor, his moon. They had separated quietly, lovingly, but it still hurt, deeply, and in that moment. Under the water, it was Lisa's face that had flashed. Her voice he thought he might never hear again. After the incident, Jason sat alone in his trailer on the Slumberland set weeks later and wrote a letter, not to his kids, not to his team, but to himself. You made it, bro. Somehow. But now what? And the answer to now what came slowly. It wasn't until he sat down with Lola, 17, and Nicole, 16, that something shifted. They had always seen him as invincible. Surfing legend, movie star, dad who wrestles sharks on screen and rides motorcycles barefoot. But now, in their kitchen, Jason stood before them, eyes wet, voice uneven. I need to tell you both something about that last trip. He told them everything. The wave, the blackness, the scream that never came out, and how the only thing that helped him hold on was them. For a long moment after he finished, the room sat still, not from shock, but love. Lola reached across the table, holding her father's hand. Nakoa, quieter, simply nodded. It's okay, Dad, he finally said. We're glad it happened. Jason blinked. Glad? What do you mean? Because it slowed you down. That was the moment. That one simple realization. Now, that healing wasn't just about living through the trauma. It was about learning from it. Jason began changing his rhythm. Where once he packed every month with shoots and screenings, now he retreated to what he loved most, creating. He dove back into his passion projects, not just as an actor, but a craftsman, a maker, a storyteller. He began carving again, sketching, spending days shaping guitars, knives, sculptures out of reclaimed wood and bone, literal pieces of life rescued from abandonment, transformed by hand. Touching something real grounds you, he'd later say. There's no ego in it, just creation. And the ocean, too, called again. But this time, he didn't return with the roar of Aquaman. He paddled into small waves, quiet dawns. Alone, each time he felt a swell move beneath him, he said a quiet thank you. Not as a warrior, but as a witness. The fear didn't disappear. It came back in flashes, sometimes during sleep. The suffocation, the helplessness. But Jason didn't fight them off. He let them visit and then let them move on. That, too, was new. He started therapy, opened up to friends in ways few had seen. Even the brothers, the rough-knit circle of stuntmen, bikers, artists Jason called family, began talking more, slowing down, sharing stories about the things men don't usually share. And while part of Jason still thrived in chaos, the roaring sets, the late-night jamming, the epic road trips, it wasn't about escaping anymore. It became about returning to why. Because the near-death moment had gifted Jason a truth most people never receive until it's too late. Don't wait to lose yourself to remember who you are. Then came the story that shocked fans when he turned down a $20 million role, just months after the accident. Not because he didn't need the money, but because the role didn't make his heart move. I no longer have time for things that don't set my soul on fire, he told a close friend. If I'm here, if I really made it, then I'm gonna live like I did. Then came filming Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom just 6 months after the wipeout, standing in front of a giant blue screen. Wires rigged to his harness, spears flying through digital storms. Jason didn't feel bigger than the ocean. He felt grateful. Because here's the truth. Most actors become their characters. But Jason had already been Aquaman before the cameras rolled, not the underwater king. The man drowning quietly. And finding a way back, we often look at celebrities as characters, simplified, mythologized, one layer deep. But behind every reputation is a man or woman who faces what we all do: fear, fragility, and the terrifying beauty of transformation. Jason Momoa wanted to conquer the oceans, but it wasn't until the ocean almost conquered him that he truly became who he was meant to be. If you ask him today what that wave taught him, he might smile that mischievous smile, raise his eyebrows and say that I'm not Aquaman, I'm just a lucky dude with 2 lungs and a second chance. And sometimes that's more powerful than any superhero, because real power isn't measured by how hard you charge, but by how gently you return.